I have to admit this, but in the 1980s, 80 graduate in 81, college in mid-80s, and then afterwards, I was a huge professional wrestling fan. I knew them all, especially the WWF players. And I remember on one occasion when Hulk Hogan, my hero, was down on the mat in a sleeper hold. I don't know who put him in the sleeper hold. It was Andre the Giant, or if it was the Tasmanian Devil, or whoever it was, but he was there, and he was sitting on the floor, and the guy was behind him with a sleeper hold, and it seemed like lights were out, and his arms would be down his sides, and the referee would hold up his arm, and it'd flop. Oh, no. And he'd lift up his arm again, and flop again. Oh, no. And just as he thought it was over, all of a sudden, his hands would raise up. And then he would start shaking his hands, and then he would get up off his feet, and he would reverse the sleeper hold, and he would flying leg drop, and he would pin his opponent, and would win. Amazing and real. But when he was in the sleeper hold, and he had that last bit of energy, the commentator would say, he's reaching deep down inside of himself, that places where no one goes before, and he draws his strength within himself, and he's able to do this. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's going to be a good sermon topic someday. 25 years later, when I become ordained, maybe I'll use it. And now I have, and you're witnesses. Is this being recorded, by the way? I don't know. The strength to do what you don't think you can do. Wow. Love the Lord with all your strength. You know, when I was a kid, I always, on the back of these popular science magazines, you had these bodybuilders, and you'd take this program or this powder, and boy, you become big and muscular and strong, and that's what I wanted to be. Big and muscular and strong. Didn't realize it wasn't so much physical strength that was important, but it's emotional and spiritual strength that's really what really matters today, doesn't it? I had a friend in college who was 6 foot tall. He weighed 174. And he had a 29-inch waist, and he had like 3% body fat. And he kept drinking all these protein powders. His metabolism was so high he could not gain an ounce. He ate all the time. He's eating all the time. And my gosh! And he was shy. He was really shy. Nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. Talented, but just as shy as you could. He didn't want to talk to a girl. He said, I'm going to wait till I get really big and strong. Then I'll give me confidence to speak to all these girls. Well, he's 49 right now, and he's big and huge, and still afraid of talking to girls. I'm not going to tell which friend it is, but it didn't seem to matter. If he was big and strong physically, he still was shy. Didn't make a difference. Didn't give him the confidence that he needed, because he needed to draw it from somewhere else and not from his physical strength. You read this passage, love the Lord with all your strength, and that's one of the first things that comes to my mind, strength. But reading all the theology textbooks and all the philosophy and all these things, and you learn it's not so much physical, but it's more, something deeper, something that pushed Hulk Hogan to get out of that sleeper hold. Something that pushes us to get up in the morning sometimes when we don't want to, when we can't face the day, when it's tough. The people back then, being oppressed as they were, understood. When I read the Psalms, I read in Lamentations about the people who are in dire needs and dire straits, and they've lost all hope. And they're complaining. They're lifting their voices to God saying, why? Why? I don't understand what's going on. What's happening to us? And later on in the psalm, as they progress through the psalm or the Lamentations, they become more convinced that God is with them. It goes from desperate need to hope that wasn't there before. More than once in Scripture you read about stories of people overcoming odds that shouldn't have been overcome. I know a guy who as a kid didn't grow up in a very healthy family, if you know what I mean, psychologically, emotionally. I think the kid had ADD, but back then it wasn't really diagnosed or anything. He was just a bad kid maybe, or just a squirrely kid, or just can't sit still or whatever it is. And you could see from his report card, D's and, not very good report cards. And having family tell him that you're pretty much worthless. You're not going to be anything more than a factory worker. Let's face it. After years of going through that, and then being married and having to talk with your wife, and your wife saying, you know what, that's bunk. What do you want to do with your life? Well, I might want to teach. I don't have my degree, but you can't. I know you're in your 30s, but you can still get your degree. Well, first thing we have to do is move away and get you out of the situation that you're in right now. Because I don't like our sons being exposed to that kind of thing. I don't need them growing up thinking that they're worthless and nothing and all this kind of thing. So what kind of strength does it take to move away and become something more than you were told you could ever be? To break out of the mold saying, you're not going to amount to anything more than a factory worker. To get your degree later in life and enjoy teaching as a career and other things. It takes something special. It takes fortitude. It takes strength of will, emotional strength. It takes strength to be someone like Malcolm X who knows that at this speech he may get killed, assassinated, but he does it anyway. Because what he stands for, what he's projecting for civil rights is more important than being afraid of somebody's bullet. And it so happened that as he was speaking at his speech, he was shot and assassinated, just as he thought he might be. Or Oscar Romero in El Salvador, fighting for the rights of people not to be oppressed. Don't follow that government which is going to tell you that you don't have any rights and all these kinds of things, that you're going to be oppressed. You don't have to stand for that anymore. And as he's lifting the chalice to consecrate the elements, a sniper's bullet kills him. Right in the middle of Mass. Can you believe that? Or Martin Luther King or Martin Luther going against odds to promote something they believe dearly in. To have the strength, the courage to go through with something that might be a little dangerous, but they know in the deepest parts of their hearts that it's the right thing to do. That God is directing them to start a movement, a reformation, a civil rights movement for the betterment of people, so that people don't have to be oppressed, so they can become something more than people tell them they are. Distance runners know it. Parents know it. Older people know it. Disabled people know it. I think everybody knows it on some level. There's something deep inside that won't be quelled, that kind of goes forward no matter what happens. People who lose a loved one, to go and wake up and to be able to breathe and to walk one step at a time, to do what it takes, the strength to go on with your life. That takes courage. It takes a lot of courage. Jesus tells his disciples in more than one time that he is going for something greater than himself. Die on the cross. That takes courage, knowing what's in store for you, but you do it anyway. Each of us have our own stories that we struggle with. Each of us have to draw upon that strength within ourselves to face whatever needs to be faced, to do what needs to be done. We all have that strength. And where does that strength come from? We know, we read the scriptures, we read Isaiah, surely my God is my strength and my might. We know that God fills us with what we need to face the day, to face the challenges that lie ahead of us, to blaze a new trail if we need to blaze a new trail, to go outside of our box, outside of our boundaries. God is the source. And I've heard more than once, how can people face that without a faith in God? How can people survive without that faith, without that rock, that solid foundation of something that grounds you, that gives you something more than just, I don't know. Love your God with all your mind, your strength, your soul, all your total being, with all your strength. And we try to do that with all our strength. Something deep within us keeping that. And we fail. We fail many times. Sometimes many times a day we fail. But God gives us strength to continue on. God gives us a sense of hope. Promise that I will forgive you and I will forget your iniquities. Didn't I just read that? Even though we don't seem to have the strength. Sometimes we lack the strength, the courage. God is there to pick us up, dust us off, fix the holes in our knees, from our pants, our skinned elbows, or whatever it is. Put us back on path. Continue to guide us. Continue giving us hope. It'll be better tomorrow. It'll get better. Believe me. Trust that things will be better tomorrow. You have something to rest your day on. Something to rest your doubts on. That I am there. I'm this one who gives you strength. As Jesus is dying on the cross, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Giving us strength, although we mess up. Giving us strength sometimes when we succeed. Giving us strength always. And we in turn have that strength. We know what's written on our hearts. The law of God, the law of love, the law of courage, the law of hope, the law of promise is written inside of us. It's a part of us now. It's a part of us and can't be taken away. God's given us these gifts, the strength, the courage, the hope. And we funnel all that and we use it to better society, to better ourselves, to better our neighbors. We love God with all our strength to make the world a little better. Because that's what Jesus tried to do. And God continues to give us strength to do that.